Hi, everybody. My name is Dawn Werner. I am a former LuLaRoe consultant. I wanted to make a quick video. I know there are probably a ton of them out there because there are a lot of us leaving the company. I wanted to give you my reasons for leaving. I don't think my story is that much different than a lot of other consultants, but I wanted to, I guess maybe there are strength in numbers, and I think there's a lot of misleading information out there where people um, think that only 5 or 10% people are failing in this business, and I feel like it's a disservice to not be honest with you. And maybe if you see enough of these videos, you'll realize that people maybe aren't just not like working hard enough. Um, and that's, I think, why people are being misled to still sign up. They think that the people that are leaving just didn't work hard enough. I started with LuLaRoe in May of 2016, and I left this past June 2017. I started in May. Things were going really well for me. I was selling probably, I mean, I wasn't one of the like top sellers where, I was selling like $50,000 a month or anything like that, but I was probably about 10,000 a month right at the beginning. I did a combination of online and in-home sales. I would go wherever people wanted me to. I frequently traveled, 2 to 5 hours away for a pop-up. So I definitely was willing to put in the work. I would spend, several nights a week staying up after my kids went to bed to photograph inventory, work my parties. I did everything I could think of. And from, I would say, that May until November, I was doing really, really well. December slowed down for me, and I thought it was probably just the holidays. Um, January started to pick back up a little bit, and February was good, and then March it just kind of wasn't doing so great. And then I thought, well, online is probably pretty saturated. I'll really focus on in home. I was really having a lot of trouble getting people to open up their homes to host parties. I don't have a strong local connection here where I live right now. We relocated here a couple of years ago, and I don't have family here, anything like that, where I, have friends of friends of friends. So that was also difficult for me. Maybe if you have a solid local base, you'll be good. I would go back to my hometown, which was about 5 hours away, to host parties, but then that market started to get saturated with other consultants, and I started to sort of kind of lose my hold on that market as well, for selling, which was really, it was kind of the final blow for me. So I thought, well, I'll focus on multi consultant sales. Where a big group of consultants get together in person. Um, and, you have 40 consultants and you sell. I did one and I had sold $1,500 in one day. That equates to probably about like a 750 or so dollar profit. So I thought, oh, this is great, I'll focus on these. And then I signed up for another one. If you sign up for them, be wary because not all people that coordinate are created equal. And I went to one that was definitely never advertised. I paid $125 to be a part of it, and there were literally like 10 customers the whole time. I sold a couple of pieces, but it definitely wasn't worth the time away from my husband and my kids. So I did another one after that, and same thing, crickets. This one definitely was advertised, but I think, I talked to other consultants there. There were like 40 of us. Um, Everybody did poorly that day. It seemed to be a trend. Everybody was struggling. Um, and I kind of took that as my sign. I'd been kind of on the fence whether or not I should quit, but I had gone down from selling, almost 10,000 a month to, oh gosh, I was probably lucky to get 2,000, but at that rate, it was really difficult to reorder and keep my stock replenished. That brings me to one of the huge problems with LuLaRoe is the minimum order is 30 pieces. Last summer, I would have said, I have no problem ordering the minimum order. once a week at least, sometimes twice a week. I'm ordering a ton of stuff. Um, Fast forward to March, and I was selling maybe 10, 15 pieces a week. So it would take me 2 weeks to get to the minimum order. And then when you're trying to get online, those people want to see new stuff constantly. And if you're not ordering tons of new stuff, you're probably not getting all the cute stuff, because you have no control over your prints. And a year ago, that was fun. And you would get like these unicorns and people would fight over them. And um, I would say the prints just haven't been as cute. I haven't actually been close enough to it the past 2 months to really know if there are any big unicorns right now. But it was just, I wasn't getting a lot of cute stuff anymore. I had my inventory just sitting. They say everything sells. When I liquidated my business, I actually still had stuff from my initial order over a year later. So, and that was doing countless parties. I had my stuff in front of thousands and thousands of people. Um, Not everything sells. Um, it might, but LuLaRoe also encourages you to think like a retailer. And if you're doing that, you don't hold on to inventory for a year or two hoping for it to sell. You cut your losses and move on. But you're not supposed to do sales. So it's just a vicious cycle of, you are supposed to be empowered to be a retailer, but you're not really empowered to be a retailer because a retailer cycles through their inventory. LuLaRoe really encourages you to go super deep in sizes and styles, and you just have thousands and thousands of pieces of inventory. Since then, I've opened up a different boutique, and I've taken some coaching with a successful boutique owner, and that's not the case. You don't need 10 pieces in each size of a style, hoping that something is cute enough to sell. And that's what it comes down to. You're just hoping and praying when you open that box that there's something cute enough to sell in there. And that was beginning to not be the case for me. Um, I would say another big thing was that there's very limited information from headquarters. Um, and while I completely am of the mindset that negativity just does start to bring negativity, but we're all adults. And if something's going wrong, you do owe people an honest conversation. Um, it doesn't have to be negative, but you can tell people the truth. I was in a few home office calls where consultants were made to feel like they were crazy because their phone calls weren't being answered. You'd be on hold for 2 hours. You'd get through, your call would be dropped. They would tell you to just use the callback service. You'd use the callback service, but nobody would ever call you back. Tickets were being lost. And we were told that there was nothing wrong. There was absolutely nothing wrong, and to just work our business. Well, you can't work your business when there are so many things going wrong. Boxes not going out, orders not being shipped for 2 weeks. All of that stuff does start to impact your business. And they treat consultants like they're not. The consultants are LuLaRoe's customers. And I think they lose sight of that sometimes. And I think the consultants are treated a little bit poorly at times. And I know that everybody will say that they have your back. And sometimes that is the case, but other times I did not feel that personally. And I think there are a lot of others out there that felt the same way. And, I struggled for a long time with feelings of inadequacy, like I wasn't working hard enough. Um, if I just worked harder, I could turn it around. Um, oh man, like if I just was a little bit more creative, not to let these hiccups get me down. I needed to be a creator. I needed to think like a retailer. Um, and ultimately, at the end of the day, the market is completely oversaturated. I was talking to my husband one day and I said, there are like 71,000 consultants. That was last summer. I think there's probably closer to 100,000 now, but nobody will really tell you the real figure. But it's been 71,000 for like months, like 6 months. So when I started, I have to say they onboarded probably like 50,000 consultants in that time. And that's taking $5,000 to $10,000, probably more from some people at a time. So you do the math. that's a lot of oversaturation. And looked at me and said, they're going to run you all out of business. And I was like, no, no, there's room for everybody. And I guess ultimately, when I went to that final multi consultant event and I was talking to people, and then I looked on the retailer map and I looked at my state of Maryland, and there were almost 2,000 consultants. Maryland's not a very big state. So, a multi consultant event of 40 people, heck, you can have those everywhere. They're a dime a dozen. Before, people would just come to them and wait outside because they were so unique and everybody did really well and it was a real sisterhood. It's not like that anymore. People can find tons of these events. You get a lot of people that come and they don't really want to just shop. They're unicorn hunters, which means they have one specific size, one specific print, one specific style for what they want. And if you don't have it, they're not shopping with you. They're not going to take the time to look at like all of your gorgeous clothes. They are there for one thing. And you can work it, you can try to mix and match and be salesy, but you don't have a lot of like solids or things like that to really accommodate people, and it becomes very difficult to really, put together outfits. Some of the pattern mixing is cute. Other times it's like, I'm just trying to throw things together, and then you get to the point where, I always said, well, I'm not going to sell outfits because I want people to have choices. And then you get to the point where people just want your unicorn leggings. So you're like, oh, maybe I should sell it with a shirt because none of my shirts are moving, and I got to get this inventory out the door. And you turn into a person that you don't really want to become. So I decided to leave. I had downsized my inventory that February just because I had over 1,000 pieces, which is like peanuts to some people. I mean, some people have like 3,000. I don't even. Some people have way more than that too. Just thousands and thousands of dollars of inventory that just sits in their homes. I liquidated mine, and then I'm sorry. Let me go back. I downsized my inventory from probably 1,100 to 850 pieces in February. And then because I was going to sell that off to try to get some fresh stuff in. So I sold a bunch, and then I reordered maybe 100 pieces out of the 300 or whatever I had sold, thinking it would jumpstart my business. It didn't. It was still struggling. So I ended up I had about 850 pieces when I decided I was going to kind of pull the plug. And I was able to sell that all of my inventory in 3 weeks. We had some family difficulties during this time, and I just financially could not wait to send it all back to LuLaRoe. It's a long process to get your refund. Everybody will say, oh, everybody gets 100% back. That's not the case. If you go into these groups where people have gone out of business, some people are missing $3,000. Some people are missing this and that. So some people do get the right amount right away, but from the time you send in your resignation letter, it takes them about 3 weeks to actually recognize that you've been resigned. Then you have to do a return authorization request. It takes them a couple of weeks to get your shipping labels, and then another week to ship back from the East Coast to California, and then another couple of weeks for them to process your refund, and then they ship it out. I didn't have 2 to 3 months to wait for my refund, so I did liquidate my inventory. I did receive some flack from other consultants because of it. Ultimately, I had to do what was best for my family. I have 3 young children, one with special needs, and I couldn't worry about everybody else at that time. I wanted to get out before I couldn't even sell the stuff, because now there's a huge market where people are just going out of business and they're running huge sales, and people are used to that if they're sales shoppers, and it's just kind of a mess. So if you're thinking of going out of business and you want some tips or tricks to know how I liquidated my inventory, like I said, I sold about 850 pieces in 3 weeks. I sent 9 pieces back to LuLaRoe. That was it. I needed to get most of the money back, and it was nice to feel, I feel like I have my life back again. I kind of processed that feeling of I felt like a failure for a while because I felt like I couldn't make it work. Um, but it wasn't it wasn't me. It was a lot of different factors. So like I said, if you're thinking about going out of business and you want any advice, please let me know. My email address I'll list below. It's Dawn, DAWN dot T dot Werner, WERNER at gmail.com. So if you're not thinking of going out of business, or if you're thinking about joining LuLaRoe, just be careful. Unless you have like 5 to 10 in-home parties set up that you think you can start generating more business from, um, don't do it. You need to have a good solid base going into this. You're investing a lot of your money. I've seen people going out of business now in like 2 months. So some people are succeeding still, but it's not the norm right now. A lot of people are really hurting out there. So I feel like I feel like I needed to let people know what it's really like. If you have any questions, let me know. And if you're still selling, best of luck to you. Again, this is my experience. I don't need any nasty comments from anybody that, thinks that I didn't try hard enough. I did. I really wrestled with the idea of going out of business. Ultimately, it was what was best for me. So, if you have any questions, if you're thinking of going out of business and you just want to talk to somebody about it, I'm here. I know it can be a difficult decision. So, take care, everybody, and good luck.